It was in late December of my 21st year, and I found my pockets bare enough to once more seek employ by way of the Atlantic Ocean, doing whatever simple work a man with high spirits and low ambition could provide a ship's captain. This expedition would reveal itself to be a cursed endeavor from the first breath, and soon would find ourselves adrift in near frozen waters, a sea of fog engulfing our entire world. For days that limped along endlessly, we struggled to ease the boredom by staring off into the mist, straining our eyes for the slightest break in the white hell stretching before us. On what could have been the 10,000th day, we saw it at last, the slightest of shimmers, dead ahead, and it was growing larger, brighter, and we were headed straight for that horrible, beautiful light. And in our madness we thanked God for delivering us into His grace. Little did my crewmates suspect we had been delivered instead to the gaping maw of the manscape. When the light that had overtaken us subsided, we opened our eyes to sight ever more miraculous: dry land. We set sail for the island now before us, not far from swimming distance away, too desperate for the feel of grass beneath our feet to notice how strangely red the skies now looked, how still the water seemed despite our steady progress through it. Once we reached land, the miracles did not cease. Littered on the grass were countless wooden crates, filled with the most strange and miraculous wares we had ever laid eyes upon. Whether these belonged to another doomed crew or to the island itself, I will never know. But I am resolute in my certainty that the items were not of this age, or perhaps even this sphere of the cosmos. First, there were the boxer briefs, black as night and as comfortable as a glove, gently holding the curve of our nethers in ways the lovers we had left at home never could. Then there were the crates marked Crop Preserver, which contained wonderful ointments which cured us of the chafing that had long been a sailor's greatest misery. Then there were the twin oddities that were the Weed Whacker and Lawn Mower, vibrating wands which effortlessly removed the hair from our noses and unmentionables, respectively. And the most curious of all were the shirts, all emblazoned with a single, enigmatic word: Manscaped. By the time anyone had noticed the ship had vanished, our hair had already begun to grow at a rate we, in another life, would have found troubling. But the compulsion to shave, to style, to clothe oneself in form-fitting underwear, it conquered our minds in a bloodless coup, and all it asked in return for its gifts was that we stay in this manscape forever, shaving forever, a crew of stylish men trapped in a realm of perpetual grooming. I share this story not as a warning, but as an act of obedience to a new God I both fear and love, the one who has manscaped my soul and speaks now, through me, to deliver a message to those who seek its bounties. Venture to manscaped.com and use offer code BOXOFFICEPULP, all one word, to get 20% off your order plus free shipping. I will repeat this once more: manscaped.com, offer code BOXOFFICEPULP. Your balls will thank you.
Here's Johnny. I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Welcome, everybody, to Box Office Pulp, your one-stop podcast for movies, madness, and moxie. I'm your host, Cody, and joining me is my co-host, Jamie. And we also have with us today a guest. No, Jamie, you don't have time to talk. We got to move. Today we have our guest star. Horror fans know him from Scare Me, Werewolves Within. Plus, he just had 2 new films drop on Shudder this month, A Wounded Fawn and Blood Relatives. We've got writer, actor, producer, director, funny guy, and probably 9 more superlatives he's earned since I started this intro, Josh Ruben.
Hell yeah, weirdo, brother, brother-in-law, friend of the country, and cat dad.
I always forget to put those on. You got to put them in the business card so I remember.
Oh yeah, my business card is full up. I take up all the space at number 8 Helvetica.
That's the money font.
Hell yeah, that's right. That's right.
So since we're starting off with the reference, this is something that I've been thinking of here. What is your feeling on references and homages in horror films? Because I feel like a lot of them take a lazy route where they're like, oh, don't forget to stop at Carpenter's to pick up some nails.
Oh yeah. I mean, when it's a really well-made film, like pretty much anything Machete did, or at least like Machete's It Chapter 1 and 2. I'm a 2 fan. I not many people are for some reason. I think it's kind of a major achievement, especially practical effects.
Oh, same.
You know, I can see where people would be like, "Oh, bummer," like dairy cola or whatever. But if the film is good, I don't really mind as much. I think it's great. I mean, I'm a sucker for it. You're also talking to the guy who was like begging Ubisoft to imbue Easter eggs into his obscure video game movie, and they were like, fine, do what you want. I'm like, as a fan, you have to have an Easter egg in your, in anything based on pretty much any IP, right? Like, even for the 10 fans of the original. But yes, lazy homage, I can see where that'd be a little obnoxious.
I mean, for your stuff specifically, I really love how in Scare Me, you do a Crypt Keeper impression, but it's not just a name drop kind of thing because it ties really directly into that ending, which feels like a EC Comics type thing where there's cruel irony to cap it off. So it's almost a foreshadowing.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate when it's a little more inside baseball because we're all, I don't know, we're all pretty savvy now. Our sensibilities are I think, they're a little more refined, a little more complex. We're all a little more educated, let's say, on the stuff that might be derivative or homaged to. And I don't know. I'd like to lean into a little bit more obscure territory because I think that kind of thing is cool. Like I don't know shit about Akira, is it called Hellion? Like what Jordan Peele homaged in Nope. But I love that he did. And if I did watch, that anime, it probably would have made the experience a lot more full for me. But for that demographic of fan, it probably blew their brains out.
Yeah. So in A Wounded Fawn, the references aren't necessarily name drops, but they're visual homages, right? We have the worm's eye view shot of you that's very similar to something out of The Shining. There's kind of an Evil Dead 2, kind of the snake head thing when he's fighting the stove. Those I thought were really interesting because most of the movie is set within Bruce's head. The character of Bruce, he sees all these different things that maybe the real world wouldn't. So in your mind, would Bruce be like a horror fan and that's why his visuals are coming out this way?
Oh, this gets in all kinds of like theory territory. Like I don't know where Travis stands on this theoretically. I think Sarah and Travis and I all have kind of disparate ideas. I don't think Bruce is necessarily a horror fan. I think that comes from just Travis Stevens' vision as a filmmaker. I think as far as like what actually happens, my opinion of it is that there actually is like a supernatural event and that these kind of Furies are perhaps torturing him, or maybe the head wound is just so bad and he's just so kind of imbued into the art world. That's just how he's associating his basically devolvement. But I never imagined him being like, also a fan of anything we're familiar with in horror pop culture. I think it's all art world for Bruce. But for Travis, it's like, oh yes, this is my Raimi-ness is, homage is, his name is Bruce, and look at his shirt for God's sake. Look at the level of blood for God's sake, his love for Giallo, his love for, Leonora Carrington and all of these surrealist artists. It's way more intelligent kind of homage than anything I could have ever imagined. As an actor turned filmmaker who got a 950 on his SATs.
So you kind of mentioned the fact that the director and you, we approach the material in different ways. How do you approach a project like this where you're an actor and not the writer or the director? How do you move into something like that?
Oh, that's an awesome question. See, I told you there wasn't a whole lot of overlap in this little indie press run. You guys are killing it.
See, I'm shocked. I feel like you probably got this one like 8 times yesterday.
I mean, probably in different ways. And if I did, it wasn't yesterday. It was last week. And so it's like, hey, at least I'd forgotten about it. I have terrible short-term memory, or long-term rather. See, I can't even get the right word. I mean, for me, like, if someone asked me to come perform, that's a whole different kind of set of skills, and some of which I can, like muscles of which I can relax. Those will want to flex if my filmmaker's in trouble. The director in me will want to help, like, solve some kind of on-set problem without being a mansplainer. So that would be my, like, impulsive kind of feeling. But I love performing, and I love, like the acting challenge for this movie is someone who's been a comedian for so long and, did sketches on College Humor for years and years. It was like, trying to actually play this for real, play this guy as grounded as possible, because that's the scariest version of playing a psycho killer, not like, twirling your mustache, but actually believing everything you say is real, and actually trying to intimidate and actually trying to terrorize, and sort of like being as relaxed and casual as possible. So that's its own set of acting challenges for me. So that was my primary focus, and concentration, which is great in a way. It's I'm hesitant to use words like vacation and lean back and relax because it's not necessarily relaxing. But for someone who's so used to commandeering a ship, it's fun for me to be able to just exercise the initial muscle, the muscle I was initially born with, and didn't have to try as hard to sort of develop. My filmmaker muscles I'm still developing, but my acting ones are like, I can often roll out of bed and just jump into something. If you can still be rusty, especially if you haven't done it in some time. But we had a nice soft runway of just rehearsals and everything. But it's a totally different facet, and one that I want to keep up. When Travis DM'd me on Twitter asking me if I wanted to take a look at a script and was I still performing, I leapt. I was like, absolutely, I'm still performing. And because when I get to work with other filmmakers, I get to see how they work, and I get to archive how they communicate with their crew and with their actors and technique and all that shit. It's all good.
I imagine it must also be very surreal at this point in your career to get those messages from other filmmakers that are like, well, if you're still interested in acting, I've got a spot for you. Like, that must feel incredible.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm not in like a golden tower at all. I am in a condo with my wife, and we're bursting out of here. So it's like, I'm still down for the gig, but I also love the idea of not being able to be pinned down. People can still find me doing like Game Changer on Dropout, like doing funny voices. And then those, that demographic of, say, comedy fan who might know me from the College Humor world might then discover on my TikTok like a trailer for the serial killer movie I'm in, or the werewolf movie I directed. And I love when they often discover that, and they go, or when one set of fans discovers the other. And as someone who's like very much working in the indie world on the side of, both comedy and horror, like, I love it, and I want to do it all. But it is also weird. It's weird, to be offered anything. It's still like, I'm still like a kid when I get an audition for something. Like Benson and Moorhead had a project that they're auditioning right now, and even to get that audition, you kind of go, oh wow, that's so crazy. Like, you're even asking me to audition for it. I love that, and I love the idea of maintaining a trajectory where people don't quite know what I'm going to do next. So we'll see if I can keep that up.
So how do you feel about being an actor and a producer at the same time, like with Blood Relatives? How do those two mesh?
Well, Blood Rollers was great because I was 98% producer, and whatever the remaining balance percentage is, Roger Fieldner, it was just a cameo that was a day or even half a day because we were really busting ass on that movie. So that one was pretty. That one was pretty easy. I'd say Scare Me was a little tougher because I produced and wrote and directed and acted, and you just have to. It's all about your team. It's all about just kind of creating the right team and setting expectations for your team so that you can kind of in a weird way prioritize each of them in a compartmentalized way so that by the time the camera rolls, you actually are delivering as an actor. And if you're not delivering, you have kind of like safe words or keywords with your cinematographer who's playing your, co-director to a degree, like my buddy Brendan did. Or you're at least, you're there to be the best partner you can for like the one and only Aya Cash, or Chris Red, like to be there 1,000% for them so that they can do the best job possible. But I also like it. I mean, it's like, again, coming from that like sketch comedy internet world where your scout for a shoot was the day you got to set, was the day you shot, your first take was the day you wrapped. I'm just used to that world of speed. And so it's sort of second nature to me. I squirm a little bit when I hear about, buddies who are doing bigger movies with all these resources and they're behind. Like, oh yeah, we were, a week or so behind schedule, whatever. I'm like, God, that's so unfathomable to me because I started on a fire. Like I truly started this whole thing with a fire under my ass with no money. So I'm really eager for the next opportunity to, I don't know, hopefully have resources and time, but also I love pressure.
Well, there's kind of a sweet spot too. I think you've mentioned before that if you took a higher budget project, then you have to worry about a little more oversight from the money folks. So that can kind of damp creativity.
You can, there's this new threshold now called $20 million, where for some reason, $20 million is still like indie level will keep the cooks out of the kitchen. Maybe it's just inflation. It used to be $50,000 and then it went to 20 million. But it seems that's still the place where you can like play or whatever. Like I think Violent Night was south of 25, and they were mostly left alone. And I think there's still a degree of, even when you're working on a movie of that size, you're still like holding a wall up together or Hollywooding a scrim or squirting someone with a super soaker full of blood from off camera. You're still filmmaking. You're still doing a little bit of that Raimi thing. That makes it kind of magical.
So if we can jump back to Blood Relatives for just a second here.
Yeah.
When you picked that movie up as a producer, was it just so you could have like the Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter role?
No, that was the icing on the cake. I feel like Noah was like kind of teasing me with not quite pulling the trigger on letting me know that that's what I would be.
So they surprised you on that one. You didn't know you were going into that necessarily?
I think I did. I mean, to be honest, I didn't quite know. I had a gig with Netflix at the time. I did one of their Death to 21 special, and I didn't know what that schedule was going to be. And so there was I was honestly worried about not being able to cameo because I love the part so much. But I took the opportunity because I never really was just the producer on a movie of that size or on a feature. I produced plenty of shorts, but like, the coffee and the stressed look behind monitor kind of thing. I was excited to do that. I'd never gone to just, kind of be available any which way I can. And producers, show up and stay for different reasons. For me, it was like to sort of be Noah's director when he needed me to make suggestions visually to kind of keep it, keep the visuals spicy and interesting, just all the stuff that, any opportunity I had where I could swoop in and make the film better because it was quite a low budget. And that was also super fun. That's what I want to future doing, especially when I'm, I don't have the endurance to do the directing thing. It's like, if I can send the elevator back down, that's the dream. But yeah, Roger was fun as hell too. I mean, that was great. You just, do your lazy eye thing and creep Vic Morales out, who's a buddy. And that's always a good time.
Well, it's such a fun character for the audience too, because you go in with the expectation that this guy is going to be one step away from brain dead, and he ends up being manipulative too. You you hear, oh, he wasn't such a bad guy. I regret this choice, and you find out he's got a dark side after being locked away for so many years. So it's a short scene, but you get to do a lot of zigs and zags you don't necessarily expect as an audience member.
Oh yeah, that's right. And I love that just by kind of happenstance that movie dropped, all but a week apart from Wounded Fawn, where I'm just playing a flat out, Patrick Bateman Predator, and that you can like literally go on the menu, at least as of right now on Shudder, and just see those two movies side to side, and then one of my characters pops up and they're quite different than the other. I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, I was telling Cody the other day how much I love that Shudder has a Josh Ruben is Insane trilogy.
They do. They really do.
It's been a good time for you, though, because the last issue of Fangoria had 3 different articles featuring you.
Yeah. I think Brian Fuller called me a slut on Twitter, and it was a huge honor because he's one of my heroes. And I was like, oh my God, Brian called me like a Fango slut.
I finally made it.
It's in all caps.
I mean, it was, oh yeah, absolutely. And of course it was all caps. It's Brian Fuller. Yeah, I mean, just to get like my first experience of Fango at all was having werewolves on the cover, and so I'm meeting all those guys at our premiere. Like they threw us a premiere party in New York right before Tribeca, and it was summertime after COVID. And we all thought it was over because we all got vaxxed, and like Tara Ansley and Phil handed me all these OG Fangos. Like one of them is Wolf. I handed a couple to Mishna. Our Werewolves Within writer, like we basically just split them because they handed me like 10 of them. And I was like, I can't be responsible for all these. I have a shelf, like that's my office. So I gave some to Mishna, of course. And my first experience with them was having, my fucking second movie on the cover of Fango. So since then, to be, tight with Phil and Angel and Jason, like that whole crew is just such an honor. So then to get 3 features in it, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, it's Fango, but like I can't lose track of the fact that this is Fangoria. It's been around for forever. It's the premier horror magazine, and the luck isn't lost on me.
Have you ever considered trying to pitch something to Fangoria for an article?
I have. I don't think any take I could possibly have is or will ever be perhaps as articulate as any of the contributors from Scott Wampler to, Brian, Barbara Crampton. There are so many insightful and well-educated horror historians and fans, and scholars, to not already do, for God's sake, like they're all contributors. And so I'd have to have a hell of a take. I think the one time I did pitch them was really just to sort of, ask Phil if he would preview my graphic novel, Darla. So, and he was just like, well, yeah, of course. So I was super lucky to get a page or two just to nod that, especially in the quote unquote Josh Ruben issue.
Yeah. I just feel like it's every horror fan's dream to get something in Fango. So man, 3 pieces in one is, whew, I can't believe you got the hat trick, man.
Like Brian said, Fango slut.
So I just want to talk about Werewolves Within for just a second and share a little personal anecdote. To prep for this interview, I had a couple friends over so I could show them the movie. Made puppy chow for everybody, sat down, and the best part about it, they all started placing bets on who they thought the killer was. Like I didn't prompt them to do this; they just started doing it naturally. And one of my friends immediately guessed the killer when Pete gets his hand bitten off. And I'm like, oh fuck, oh no, she knows it. Didn't say anything, got my cool. And then she got turned around by all the red herrings in the film and eventually changed her bet right before the reveal. And I just got to sit there like, oh, it's working.
That's rad. That's amazing. I always get my shoulders always go up anytime people talk about who it is on Twitter, even though it like came out like well over a year ago. I'm like, oh, but what about because not millions of people haven't seen it yet. It has been on various Netflixes, I think Netflix UK and Canada, as well as like, God, it just opened in Busan recently. It's still playing theaters. Like now it's in now it's in Korea, which is crazy. So I'm like, oh no, don't give it away. But especially when people are like, I had no idea. A lot of people have called it, but especially when people are like, I mean, that's the best. To be able to like, you made a whodunit.
Man.
Holy shit.
Right. And well, trying to balance it too, so people don't guess in the first 20 minutes to roll their eyes and tune out. It seems like a Herculean task for any mystery movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough to do. I think right around the time, I don't think Knives Out had come out yet, but by the time we did that film, I had rewatched Clue. I was desperately searching for Death Trap, which criminally I haven't seen, although now that I have, if I ever get to make my Scare Me spinoff, there will be a major Death Trap kind of homage. But I was, certainly was rewatching some whodunits. I tried to rewatch. God, was it called Glenford Falls? Am I just totally butchering? It's the Robert Altman. Why can't I think of what that one was? The Maggie Smith mystery.
Yeah.
God, what was that? I like tried to get through it. I was like, that's the one. I was like, oh no, this is not going to be the same tone. But I wanted to revisit, the Agatha Christie of it all to just kind of see if I don't know, there's anything to kind of imbue, because I was worried. I wanted there to be an actual mystery, and I'm not the most intelligent human man. So I wanted to make intelligent choices, and I really did my homework. But anyway, that's why I'm so thrilled when people are like, oh shit, I had no idea. Yeah, good stuff.
So I know obviously you didn't write Werewolves Within, so that was probably beyond your scope for writing the ending. But for something like Scare Me, in your writing process, do you come up with an ending first and then reverse engineer the story to reach that point? Or do you typically kind of wander as you write and find the ending through storytelling?
That's a great question. I want to say I will typically find my way through the storytelling, although I've written so many scripts that I've hit a wall at page 33 because I tried to write it like a novel, like just following my fingers.
Right.
It's also why I'm so jealous of Zach Kreger, because I don't think that's exactly his process for Barbarian. And he ended up of course it was tweaked to be the brilliant thing that it is now, but he sort of found what it was through just a creative exercise for himself and for nobody else. I'd like to think that for the scripts that I've done, yes, I've more or less outlined and just sort of thought, what's a great story? It always starts with, for me, it starts with sometimes a great image or an exciting image, an image that excites me, if not a vibe, the way that God Scare Me was made at the height of Me Too. And also I was going through sort of a personal crisis, not really sure if I was ever going to get to make a movie, and was excited about the idea of making a movie as weird as one that just used sound design instead of actually having props and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, when I've finished screenplays, and I've finished a good amount of them now, I have always known the beginning and the end. It's the middle that's always tough. That middle journey, that B storyline is always a tricky one. It remains to be the sort of stickiest part for me, but somebody phrased it really well. It's like, it's all about how your protagonist gets down from the tree as rocks are kind of thrown at them, to completely butcher the adage I read at some point. If whatever, act one is your protagonist climbing the tree, second act is them getting rocks thrown at them, and is also in part, or ends with them sort of figuring out how they can get out of trouble before they reach the act three portion of the film, when they finally either fall out of the tree, jump out of the tree, or climb down the tree. And that's what you got to do. You got to just at least know what your touchstones are. So I think for the most part, I've known my beginning and my end. But if someone can teach me how to write a good second act, that'd be awesome. 39 years old, folks. He's still learning.
Before we go, I do want to say, on behalf of the podcast, the kindest thing one nerd can say to another: we all trust you with Darkman.
Oh, girl. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, God, that would be a dream. That would be a dream. I think I can do it, but we have to convince the world. The trickiest thing is convincing a big studio, maybe even one of our filmmaking legends, that you don't need to remake it, that there's a way to do this film in such a way that excites the masses, where they find out it's a superhero film, kind of in the way you find that out about, I don't know, unbreakable. Not that that would be the tone of my Darkman if I ever got to play in that world, but I do believe that there's a way to reintroduce or introduce for the first time this IP to the world without having to like do a remake. And I'm saying that as someone who, you know, was so excited that Liam Neeson said he'd be interested publicly in a new Darkman script. I hate, you know, that I'm still very much, that dream is still very much alive. So thank you.
Yeah.
So if you were to do a Darkman, considering, you know, the first one is loaded with Sam Raimi style, visually, how would you even approach that? Are you trying to do Sam Raimi-isms? Would you have to completely scrap that for something new?
I think what you need to do from the get-go, not unlike, say, a movie like *Malignant*, where you jump right in with style, the way with any Raimi film, you jump right in with a certain style. You know exactly what kind of world you're in. You just want to start with a world that feels a bit heightened. And so that might be, without giving anything away, that might be through the sort of perspective of someone whose reality is a little bit warped or whose existence is a bit heightened. And there are so many movies that do that and have done that successfully. I mean, even Uncut Gems, you know immediately what kind of world you're in. No Country for Old Men, you know exactly the kind of world that you're in. Pretty much any Coen Brothers movie. So
Oh, yeah.
it starts with just, I think, starting in a certain place, and then I think there's a way to escalate this story anyway, or a story like Darkman or in the world of Darkman that can escalate to wickedness and escalate to that incredible Raimi-esque like pace and that color palette. Almost like any horror movie. It's like, you know, most horror movies start with an intimate love story, not much different than Darkman did, despite its kind of Batman-like cold open. And then it escalates and it escalates and it escalates with each sort of rock that's thrown at your protagonist, you know, and how that changes them.
I mean, that's great because you've got the return of the character, but then you also have the return of Sam Raimi's style, kind of making its full appearance, I guess, in your description as the movie goes on. So it's a renewal in a whole bunch of different forms as the movie would continue. So now I get to be sad that it's not a real thing.
Well, we don't know that yet. I think I need to have my Barbarian or Smile studio hit before I can even play in that arena. But I've gotten close. I'll say that.
Well, plus it's been absolutely fantastic for horror the past couple of years. The box office receipts are amazing. The movies are actually really good. I've been having such a good time. Yeah. All the different stuff Shudder's been pumping out. It's just been an absolute treasure for fans right now.
It really has. Yeah, it's amazing to be part of the community, really, in any way.
All right. We are almost out of time, but I do want to sneak in one more question here. Who are some of your favorite character actors, and have you picked anything up from those guys in your own performances?
Oh my God! If you really, really look at stuff that I've done, so even in sketches, I feel like I've stolen from the likes of John Leguizamo, Robin Williams, Joaquin Phoenix, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Those are the pillars for me, you know. And then to see like the incredible actresses that are now coming out that are capable of, you know, far beyond that. It's been a minute since like Kristen Wiig, of course, but Molly Shannon and Sarah Squirm, who's now on SNL. All of these incredible character actors, like God, I know that there's an actor named Courtney Peruso here in California who's just absolutely phenomenal. She can kind of do anything. Chloe Fineman, Hannah Pilks. I mean, that list goes on and on. But yeah, my four pillars were the initial I mentioned, and I don't know. I feel like I can hear myself sort of dipping into a little like Boogie Nights Scotty every once in a while. I just did a sketch yesterday where I was actually playing the Joker for my buddy Pete Holmes. He does these like Batman sketches, and you know, actually getting to like do the Joaquin Joker. But then I had like weirdly, when I was yelling, I would dip into Phil Hoffman, like just do this like kind of, you know, voice like this, you know. It's just, I don't know. Which I guess is also kind of Malkovich-y. But anyway, we had such an amazing era of them in the 90s. And we continue to, certainly with Phoenix's work. But yeah, I fucking love character actors. There's nothing cooler than watch people disappear.
Bless the character actor.
Yeah, that's my t-shirt.
Well, we have hit our time limit with you. I don't want to keep you too long here. So, folks, right now you can check out A Wounded Fawn. You can find Blood Relatives and Scare Me all on Shudder. I hope we didn't ruin any of those for you by spoiling anything. But yeah, check those out if you haven't already. Go watch them again anyways. They're fun. Werewolves Within, I believe, is on VOD, so you'll have to look that one up. And boy, can we expect a little insider information here? Would Blood Relatives or Wounded Fawn be making their way to physical media at any time in the future?
Physical media, I can't quite answer that. Shudder is going through kind of a crazy ringer right now with the AMC layoffs. It still exists. My homies are still there. We had to say goodbye to some incredible pillars like Craig Engler and Sean Redlitz, who are already off to incredible, very. They're already off to some incredible endeavors. But physical media, I'm not sure because RLJ is their physical media distributor, and I don't believe they were involved in either Wounded Fawn or Blood Relatives. I think Shudder kind of outright financed them. So I know that within 6 months they'll be on VOD. My guess is that someday there will be some even if we have to wait a decade, there will be a really rad physical release of both. I think especially with Wounded Fawn, with the 16 mil of it all, we're seeing such a crazy response from fans. It's been so rad to see. There might be a riot at some point, just given how that movie is sort of taken off with film fans, let alone the Blood Relatives demographic of like younger, say, gateway horror kids or teenagers and like families, which was our kind of goal. To bring to bring a family film to Shudder. So I hope that for that reason, it's going to have a nice long life, and with a long life comes hard media for sure. But I can tell you that Vol, who scored Wounded Fawn, we have a vinyl coming to Waxwork.
Oh, hell yeah!
That you can pre-order. I believe if you look up Vol, VAAA, 3 A's L, Vol on Twitter, Instagram. He has some info up about that. And at some point, I do believe that Robert Allaire, our brilliant composer for Blood Relatives, he's going to put out an album, but I don't know if that will be vinyl or cassette, which I guess is a thing again, or what have you. But I hope it's one or the other because it's just so rad. Let's start with digital. We don't all have a tape player. Come on, kids. I get it, TerraVision.
Geez, now I just feel like a hipster with my vinyl and cassette collections stacking up here.
I mean, now I feel left out, dude. I don't even have a 4K player, so I better get on that shit as well. It's like, come on, you're a filmmaker. I have to throw out all my screeners or send them to my grandparents.
This has been a spectacular year for horror, but above everything that's come out this year, I think Blood Relatives is in my top 3. So I cannot wait to put that on my shelf next to Near Dark, where it belongs.
Oh my God, that means so much. I will tell Noah and my producers. That means the world. It's fucking cool. I'm glad you love it. We do too.
Yeah, man. Both, I would say if I'm playing favorites here, Wounded Fawn, it takes the lead for me for favorites, but both are absolutely phenomenal movies. I think everyone who checks them out on Shudder is going to have a wonderful time. So thank you.
Something for everyone.
Hell yeah,
Something
man.
for the whole fam. Yeah.
So thank you so much for stopping in here today. This has been an absolute delight. If folks want to find more from you, where's the best place to find more Josh?
Check out my website before the socials of it all. You can link to it through there, but josh'smindhouse.com. There's merch. You can buy a Scare Me screenplay with an exclusive cover from my artist buddy, Henry Gonzalez. There's news. There's all kinds of work updates. You can watch the short films I've produced and starred in. There's all kinds of good stuff in there. Good place to start.
I bought that Scare Me screenplay, and I found out how easy I am to bribe because he threw some stickers in there for free. And it's like, oh, fuck, whoa, that's all it takes for me to be a fan for life. He's got me. Fuck, this is amazing.
You were, you're lucky because you were one of the early ones. That was mainly a pandemic kind of endeavor. It was so fun to just get a shit ton of envelopes and go to stamps.com and bankrupt myself and just send them out. It's just so fun to be to have that exercise through the pandemic was kind of life-changing for me. So thank you for purchasing, and I will one day again sign some shit and send out some stickers because I'm sitting on some. So appreciate that.
Yeah, it absolutely made my week when I got that in the mail. So man.
Amazing. Well, I have to convince Noah to do that with Blood Relatives because that's such a great little thing. People just love hard media stuff. I mean, I have a graphic novel coming out next year called Darla, and I'm doing it because I'm getting back into comics, and we all like having stuff, right? So
For sure. Man,
yeah.
I'm excited for Darla 2. Do roughly know when that's going to be hitting streets?
According to our publisher, Invader Comics, quote unquote, early 2023. But there's some really exciting stuff regarding Darla, especially with just how it's going to be divvied out and stuff. They're just full of amazing ideas. That crew is just so rad to us, and it's illustrated by Brianna Tippett, who did some incredible fan art for both Blood Relatives and Wounded Fawn. If you check her out on Instagram, Bree Tippett, she's so great. 2 P's, 2 T's.
Oh, fuck. I need like 6 more hours to get into all this stuff. There's too many good projects coming up, man.
Yeah, do it.
All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you again a millionth time to Josh for showing up. If you want to find more Box Office Pulp, you can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, wherever podcasts are found. We're everywhere. We're free. We're loose. Thank you so much for listening. I said that 8 times now, but now I'm flustered and excited. Boy, everyone have a good night. Hey, the end of the show. I always fuck up these endings anyway. It's fine. Folks, that is a wrap.
Hey, we did it.
And like that,